This is the Goalie Kid. It's a fictional hockey podcast about an 18-year-old goalie trying to find his way in life. Along the way, him and his friends learn about business, life, and what they want out of life. Chapter 7. Benny was back at the house, recovering from his injuries. Without minor league hockey, he had no source of income. He was at his desk looking for any potential job openings. He went through the job descriptions and came across a job opening for a hardware store. It was Jenny's father's hardware store. Ralph's hardware store. The job opening was for a cashier and inventory position. He sent his resume off to the store and hoped for the best. Benny's leg was doing better. He was able to move and walk with much more ease. He went downstairs and made himself lunch. His father then walked in. "Hey, how's the job hunting going?" asked his father. "Okay, I applied to Jenny's father's hardware store." "That's good, but don't you think there might be a conflict there?" "I know, Dad, but shouldn't I be applying to everything I can apply to?" "Well, not exactly. Look, I'm not saying you have to decline this, but next time, don't just apply to something because your girlfriend or someone you know is working a certain job. You have to be your own man." "I understand, Dad." Benny finished his lunch and cleaned up. He then went back to his computer and continued looking for entry-level positions. Benny would apply to a few more jobs and take a break. A few hours later, his brother came home from school. "Hey, Scott," said Benny. "How was school?" "It was fine," said Scott. "How's the job hunting going?" "It's going okay." "I applied to a few office jobs in Mr. Johnson's hardware store." "That's good." Scott briefly looked away and then spoke again. "Benny, maybe I don't understand everything that's going on, but I do know this. You are going to do something special. I don't know what, but you are going to do something that could change the world." 2 weeks later, Mr. Johnson called Benny back to schedule an interview. "Mr. Jensen, it's Mr. Johnson. Listen, are you available for an interview on Tuesday?" "Yes. What time?" 9 a.m. You don't have to dress fancy. Just some khakis and a dress shirt." "Okay. Thank you. I'll be there." Benny then made his way downstairs. "Dad, I have some good news. I have an interview on Tuesday at 9 a.m. at Mr. Johnson's hardware store." "Well, that's good news." Benny's father took a deep breath. "I've got to be honest with you. Your mother and I are burning through our savings. I hope you get this because I'm just trying to hold on. We're not getting as many people investing. We may need to sell something or rent out the basement. So, are you in debt?" "Yes. So, I wish you the best of luck." "Thanks, Dad." It was Tuesday morning, 10 minutes before Benny's interview. Even though he was being interviewed by Mr. Johnson, he was still a bit nervous. Once Mr. Johnson arrived at the store, he took Benny to the back room and began the interview. "So tell me, Benny, why do you want to work at my hardware store?" Well, sir, I want to learn about sales. I've learned a lot about hardware, and I want to use that knowledge to increase my skill set. Interesting answer, Mr. Jensen. Would you be available to work late on weekends if I asked you? Yes, sir. Will you stay up to date on new hardware and the hardware market? Yes, sir. Any questions for me? Yes. Are there specific websites or magazines that I should read? Yes. Go to hardwaredaily.com and read up on All About Hardware magazine. Final question. When can you start? On Monday. Well then, Mr. Jensen, you've got the job. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I won't let you down. On Monday morning, Benny would begin his first week of work. He would work alongside Jenny and Mr. Johnson. He learned the ropes quickly. Benny worked the cash register for the first 2 days and would do inventory checks the next 3 days. Both Jenny and her father were impressed by his work ethic. Benny was glad that he was learning quickly and was eager to learn more. As Benny's confidence was growing at work, he wanted to see if he could pick up another source of income. While looking at his options, he discovered podcasting. Since he learned so much about hardware, he thought that he could teach others how to fix problems within their own house or what to buy to repair furniture. The next month was approaching fast. That Friday, Jenny and Benny walked into the store, ready to start the day. I've got to hand it to you, Benny. You have learned a lot over the past month. Thanks, Jenny. Mr. Johnson then arrived 10 minutes later. Good morning, you two. I trust you've taken care of everything? We have, Mr. Johnson, said Benny. Good. Now, there's going to be a shipment coming in today. So, Benny, when it arrives, I want you to sign off on it. After that, unload the boxes. Jenny, count the money. Okay, I got it, said Jenny. As their day began, they began to have a steady flow of customers. Jenny would handle the register, while Benny dealt with the shipments. Once the afternoon came, Benny took care of all the shipments, and Jenny was about to take lunch. Okay, I'm going to grab lunch. Do you want anything? Jenny asked. I'll have the house salad with chicken, said Benny. And I'll have the grilled chicken sandwich with some tomato soup, said her father. Once Jenny left the store to get lunch, Mr. Johnson approached Benny and talked about his performance. Mr. Jensen, I just want to say you continue to impress me. I do have an opportunity to give you some overtime if you're interested. Oh, yes, I would love to take some overtime. I could use the hours. Great. For 2 hours on Saturday, I need you to mail out some supplies to our customers that are out of town. There are about 100 out-of-town customers. Okay, so do I just stamp the boxes and then ship them out? Well, that's part of it, but right now, can you create label templates on the computer, then insert these labels into the printer, and then print them out? Absolutely. Before the day finished, he set up the address templates on his computer. The next morning, Benny came in ready to start the day. He turned on the computer and opened the spreadsheet and combined that file with the mail stickers. Mr. Johnson then walked in. "Hey, Benny, are the address labels ready?" "Yes, sir, they are." "Okay, let's stick them on the boxes." Mr. Johnson and Benny then began attaching the labels to the boxes. Benny would also begin double-checking the boxes and would make sure that each of the items was going to the right people. When Benny finished out the day, it was lunchtime. He decided to grab a sub at Todd's. While he was waiting for his meal, he got out his phone and looked up tips for starting a podcast. A few minutes later, Johnny, Phil, and Pat entered the restaurant. "Hey man, how's your summer going?" asked Johnny. "Not too bad," said Benny. "How about yourself?" "I'm doing just fine." "How about you, Pat?" "My summer is going well." "And you, Phil?" "I'm making the most of it." "That's good." "So, what have you been up to?" asked Phil. "I was thinking about starting a podcast, so I've been looking up some tips and tricks to getting started." "Why are you starting a podcast?" asked Johnny. "Well, I want to give some advice to up-and-coming hockey players, as well as encourage some newcomers to pick up the sport." "And you expect to make money from this?" "Well, maybe not a lot at first, but yeah." "How do you think you're gonna do this?" asked Pat. "Well, the first episode is going to be a bio about me. I'm also collecting emails from our former classmates and letting people know that I'm starting this." "Well, I hope it works out for you," said Phil. "Thanks, man." Over the next weekend, Benny would buy his microphone and record his first podcast episode. He began his podcast by talking about what it was like to grow up as a goalie and play minor league hockey. "Good morning. This is the Goaltenders Podcast, where we give you the advice to become a great hockey player. Whether you want to become a goalie, defenseman, centerman, or a winger, you will learn all you need from this podcast." He took a deep breath and continued. "This is the first episode, and I want to give you a little insight into my life. I began playing hockey at 8 years old. I have only ever played goalie, except for when I play on the pond in the winter. I currently work at a hardware store part-time. I'm 18 years old and not currently enrolled in college. My dream, ever since I started hockey, was to play professional hockey. But ever since my accident, things took a different direction." Benny would spend a few more minutes talking about his life and then would move on. "Okay, let's talk about tips and how to improve your game. Off-ice training is the key to becoming a master at hockey. You're not always going to have access to the rink, so you'll need to do off-ice exercises to keep you in shape. Also, go buy a pair of rollerblades in addition to having a pair of ice skates. You can practice outside on a basketball court or a playground." After he was done recording, he uploaded it to the internet. The session was only 20 minutes long, but it was a very important first step for Benny. After he was done uploading, he put out the word on social media that his first podcast was up. Over the next few days, he would check over his numbers. In the first 5 days, he got 500 downloads. This was huge for Benny because most other podcasts didn't start out like this. Since this was a podcast for hockey players, he had a bit of a monopoly in this space. The next week, the podcast would grow to over 1,000 downloads. Benny put out 5 more episodes to build up a little more notoriety, and it paid off immensely for him. That Monday, when he went to work, Mr. Johnson was quick to compliment him. "Good morning, Benny. I recently listened to a few episodes of your podcast, and I must say that I'm impressed." "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ever since my dad began struggling with his financial company, I have been trying to earn a little more money for my family." "Well, that's exactly the right attitude to have. Now let's go to work." Benny began his day by stocking the shelves and checking the inventory. Jenny had the day off, so it was just him and Mr. Johnson. It was a slow day for Benny, as only a few customers came in. That night, Benny would record his 6th episode. Just before he recorded the episode, he would upload the other 5 episodes to a video sharing site to gain more exposure. After he recorded his 6th episode, he went to bed so that he would be up early tomorrow, ready to start the day. The next morning, Benny would have breakfast. His father would come down to join the family for breakfast. "Morning, everybody," said his father. "Good morning," said everyone else. "So, Benny, I recently listened to one of your podcast episodes, and I must say that I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Dad. I wanted to be a voice to help new and upcoming hockey players and to give them some advice for becoming better hockey players." "Well, whatever you're doing, it seems to be working. Have you made any money yet?" "Well, I need to get a few more downloads until that happens, but I'm getting closer every day." "That's good. Listen, I'm going on a business trip, and I'm going to be gone for about a week." "Okay. Anything else I should know?" "No. Just keep up the good work you're doing at your job as well as your podcast." "Will do, Dad." Once Benny got to the store, Jenny was already there. "Hey, Jenny, where's your father?" "He's out sick. The good news is that we only need to work for a few hours today. But the bad news is that you will only be paid for half of the day for today." "That's all right. I'm trying to get my podcast off the ground." "By the way, how's that going?" "It's going great. I was thinking of having a guest, but I need the right equipment." "You know what I have? A 2-way microphone, if you're interested." "Jenny, thank you. Now I can do my new episode of a fan's perspective of the game." The two of them would complete their half day at the store. After that, they went to lunch where they talked over what they would talk about on the next podcast episode. "So, what's your plan for the next episode?" asked Jenny. "Well, I want to get your perspective to show people that there are a large number of fans and that the sport of hockey is growing." "Perfect. I know just what to say." "Great. Let me get my laptop and my camera from my house, and we can record later." After lunch, the two met up at Jenny's house. Jenny began to set up the microphone in her basement as Benny prepared the show notes and set up his camera. Once everything was set up, they were ready to go. After the intro played, Benny got right into it. "Good afternoon, everybody. I have a little surprise for you." With me today is my girlfriend, Jenny. And today, we're going to give you a fan's perspective of the game of hockey. Also, we'll give you an idea of how one gets into the game of hockey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So Jenny, what's up? What is up, Benny? Nothing but the ceiling, baby. All right, let's begin. So, Jenny, what in particular got you into hockey?
Well, it was a game that intrigued me, and unlike most sports, it is a game that is played on ice.
Would you say that it's a sport that's easy to understand?
For the most part, yes. Like soccer, you need to get the puck into the net and prevent the other team from scoring on you. It's just like soccer on ice, but with sticks.
They went on for a few more minutes and then ended the episode. Benny then uploaded the episode. He sent out emails to his friends and everyone on his email list, asking them to share the show. It would only be a matter of time until the episode would get attention. Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of The Goalie Kid. Please be sure to rate this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get this podcast. Also, be sure to share the show with a friend. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.